And with that, I believe we are recording. Ladies, gentlemen, theys and thems, welcome back to another W&W Pokemon Draft League video. My name is Chris Moriarty Marks. Joining me here today, we've got Caleb, the Seagull Gulley,
Hey,
Elite
what's up?
Hipsterbrownkid Sheikh, and Jakob Jookeb Rich himself. Um,
Hello.
I know it has been a while since we've gotten another video out to you guys. Life got kind of crazy for basically everybody right there at the end of last season. Uh, and has been since. You might find that believable, you might not, but that's on you. But we're finally back to update you with what's been going on in Season 8 here at the midpoint. And starting us off on our dive into Season 8, we've got Ali with the format.
Yeah, so we've got a funky little format for Season 8 here. We're sticking with the Series 10 rule set, which means no Dynamax, and the Restricteds are back. So our team structure for this season, we've got one Restricted Pokemon, one Legendary Pokemon, 2 Tier 1s, 3 Tier 2s, 3 Tier 3s, 2 Tier 4s, and a wild card or a flex pick, which is basically whatever any team wants out of any of the tiers except for the restricted tier. And now looking closer at the teams in their divisions, we've got Jakob.
Yeah, we have two divisions for our Season 8. We have the Galar and the Johto division. For the Galar side, the Charlotte Charizards have drafted into the division the Nashville Ninetales, the Queen City Quagsires, and the West Texas Wingles. And for the Johto side, the Chapel Hill Haluchas have drafted the Jersey City Jirachi, the Memphis Machamps, and the Toronto Trick Roomers. And now we will be sending it back over to Ali for the divisional tables so far.
All right, so looking at our divisions and their standings, we've got the Galar division with the West Texas Wingles in first place with 12 points, Charlotte Charizards in second in the division with 6, Nashville Ninetales in third with 4 points, and our newcomer, the Queen City Quagsire, sitting in fourth place in the division with 3 points. Moving over to the Johto division, we've got the Toronto Trick Roomers on top with their 8 points, Chapel Hill Haluchas in second with their 6 points, Memphis Machamps with 5 points in third place, and the Jersey City Jirachi in fourth place with their 2 points.
Yep.
So,
and,
Caleb, why don't you take us to the overall standings?
I'd be happy to, Ali. Seeing these divisions up close kind of gives you an idea what these divisions races are like. But now, seeing what those overall standings are at the midpoint of the season, as we're starting to see these playoff storylines potentially come into play, seeing who's going to be our top seed, who's going to be our mid seeds, who are you going to play? I mean, you got to win your division first, but looking at the top of the table here, we're just going to run this down from top to bottom. The West Texas Wingles, myself, with 12 points, 5-0 record, 10-1 game score, plus 19 differential. But not to be outdone, the Toronto Trick Roomers there with 8 points, 3-2 match record, 7-4 game score, and plus 3 overall in the differential column. The Charlotte Charizards at 6 points from the Galar division with a 3-2 match record, 7-5 game score, plus 9 differential. And then the Chapel Haluchas are reigning champions from Season 7 with 6 points, 2-3 match record, 5-6 game score, and a -6 differential on the season so far. Following them up is the Memphis Machamps with 5 points, 2-3 game score, or 2-3 match record, 4-7 game score, -5 differential. Nashville Ninetales at 4 points, 2-3 match record, 5-8 game score, -4 differential. Queen City, our new inaugural season, new team in the league with 3 points, with a 2-3 match record, 5-7 game score, -1 differential. And then finishing off our table is the Jersey City Jirachis with 2 points, 1-4 game score, or 1-4 match record, 3-8 game score, -15 differential. Something that you viewers at home might notice with this table is we have a lot of teams with a 3-2 record, 2-3 record, but they have the same points. You might wonder, what's the reason for that? So we did a different point system for our standings. And one thing that we incorporated was that sweeps were an extra point per series, and then on top of that, we weighted the divisional games. So if you win a divisional game, it's worth 2 points. If you sweep, it's 3 points. If you do non-divisional, it's only worth 1 point. But if you sweep, it's 2 points. So that's where a lot of these scores and game records and things like that all look different, but you get the same points. It really matters where you win your games and how you win them, which is something that we haven't really stressed before in the past, but we figured we'd try it out in Season 8, and so far it's been a very exciting season because of that. So, on to you, Jacob, for our schedule for the remaining 5 games of the season.
Yeah, for the last 5 weeks of our regular season, we have week 6, which is all cross-divisional. There will be no in-division games played for this week. It will be the Charlotte Charizards versus the Toronto Trick Roomers, the West Texas Wingles versus the Jersey City Jirachi, the Nashville Ninetales versus the Memphis Machamps, and the Chapel Hill Hawluchas versus the Queen City Quagsires. Week 7, which will be all in-divisional, very important to look out for. It's going to be telling us a lot about how our storylines play out going forward. We have the Jersey City Jirachi versus the Chapel Hill Hawluchas, the Nashville Ninetales versus the Charlotte Charizards, Toronto Trick Roomers versus the Memphis Machamps, West Texas Wingles versus the Queen City Quagsires. Week 8 will be once again cross-divisional. It will start off with the Memphis Machamps versus the Charlotte Charizards. We have the Toronto Trick Roomers versus West Texas Wingles, Queen City Quagsires versus the Jersey City Jirachi, and Nashville Ninetales versus Chapel Hill Hawlucha. And to end out the regular season, both week 9 and 10 will be in divisional. So very, very important, very strong finish for everyone. Will be the Chapel Hill Hawluchas versus Toronto Trick Roomers to kick off week 9. Memphis Machamps versus Jersey City Jirachi to continue. Queen City Quagsires versus Nashville Ninetales. And to end it off, the West Texas Wingles versus the Charlotte Charizards. And for week 10, we have the Memphis Machamps versus the Chapel Hill Hawluchas. Toronto Trick Roomers versus Jersey City Jirachi.
I hate that game.
Charlotte Charizard versus Queen City Quagsire. And to end it all, we have the West Texas Wingles versus the Nashville Ninetales.
We get to close it out in style, Ali.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't have it any other way. But speaking of not having things any other way, why don't we take a dive into how we've gotten to this point in terms of the actual play? We've got the teams pulled up here. An important note for the viewer at home is, oh my god, so much has happened to these teams since these graphics were made. You would not believe some of these changes. So some of what we might say here today is going to possibly reference some of those changes. We will try to make sure it's clear who we're talking about with some of these new Pokemon that have been added and some of the Pokemon that have been dropped. But for a more in-depth view on all of these roster changes and things of that nature, be sure to tune in for those next 2 videos that we will be putting out, where we will go into each division and each team more in depth, walking you through some of that. But for here today, gentlemen, the first thing I want to get your thoughts on are the fact that we've seen all of these teams play everybody in their division at least once. How are things shaping up versus how you expected? Any surprises? Anything that's just like, yeah, I mean, just looking at the teams, that's kind of how things should have gone. Thoughts, anything?
Well, there's been a lot of surprises this season, Chris. Let's just be honest in saying that. Especially coming into this, we had this thing called Roster Move Thursday that's happened over the last couple of days, referencing all the moves. It doesn't matter if it's a different day of the week. It's only Thursday all these moves happen, apparently. But you're talking about how these teams have performed. We looked at the standings, and so I took a deeper dive earlier. Look at these maximum points available for teams, so you can kind of see where these teams are going to slot in potentially in the playoff picture. And so looking at the Galar division, we'll take a look at the Charlotte Charizards up here. They're at the top. If they win out and sweep out the rest of the season, they'll finish with a total of 19 points. Nashville would finish with a total of 17 points. Myself at 25. Queen City with 14. Which makes it very interesting to know that we're only at halfway point, but depending on how your points were spread out in the first 5 games, you may or may not have as many available as other teams. And you kind of see that a little more evident in the Johto side, with Toronto having 20 points total that they can get to, Chapel Hill at 17, Memphis can cap out at 18, and Jersey City at 16. And it is worth noting that maximum points here is 26 for the entire season if you won every game and swept every series. So it's kind of interesting to know that we've all played 5 games, but your final landing spot is very different depending on how you close out this season. So finishing strong is imperative if you want to make some moves in the divisional races.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a great product of having the divisional series matter more, and also just having sweeps matter more.
Yeah,
it's been
absolutely.
a great implementation for season 8. So
Yeah, really reward people for performing not only where it matters, but also sweeping when it air quotes doesn't matter as much in those cross divisional games. Adding that extra point, as we can see, is what's separating a lot of people on that table. But I want to get more into how the teams have actually played this season. Let's just start with things on the Galar side of things. How has this division shaped up versus your expectations? Jacob, I'm going to come to you first, and we'll just go across the screen the other way.
Well, I think I think it's very safe to say that the West Texas Wingles being on top, it's not very shocking to many people, especially with having the Kyogre, and immediately after drafting Kyogre, having the answers to Kyogre ready on your team, having the Alecki and the Rillaboom.
It was like that was a draft day strat, man.
Maybe. It makes it very hard for everyone else in the league to really just do anything there. And I will say I'm pretty proud of myself for coming up in second place so far. Just saying.
Yeah. Yep. But how about that Calyrex Shadow down there at the bottom of the division so far? I know it's in the newcomers' hands, but thoughts on that one?
I think it's a little bit surprising, but if you look at the team, it does kind of make sense. It's kind of lackluster without the Calyrexes. It seems like one of the main issues. You can't really bring anything else to deal with other Mons unless you have the Calyrex, it seems.
Fair enough. Caleb.
Well, to jump in on that Queen City conversation, I think they've actually played really well. This is their first season in a draft league format. They get one of the best restricteds with Calyrex Shadow. And I think they've piloted the team as well as they can. They have a lot of the really good supportive pieces. You know, I don't want to take too many of the talking points when we talk about this team in a divisional setting, but, you know, first season in, everybody has a lot of growing pains. But, like, the interesting thing about this Queen City team is they pick up one more season or one more series in this regular season. They're going to have the best overall record for an expansion team since we started adding teams to this. So I think that's a really good pat on the back for them. I think they've performed extremely well, and they've known how to use this Calyrex extremely well. So it shows up a lot, but they know how to use it, and you have to respect it. So I think Queen City's really outdone themselves and played really well.
Yeah.
So I'm happy they're part of the league. Honestly, they've definitely brought the play up across the board.
What about the rest of your division?
Well, the rest of the division, I mean, Nashville, they've made a lot of spicy moves lately. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. There's a lot of question marks I'm not sure how to look at and handle yet because I haven't looked at that in depth. But I think Nashville, they're a very solid player in our league, in our division. There's no doubt they will make a run and finish in a good spot for the playoffs. Charlotte has this thing called a Xerneas. I don't know if y'all know about this, but Xerneas is kind of stupid. So, yeah, just a little bit, Jacob. That was a really good pick. The fact that you got that outside the first round is bonkers.
Hey, it wasn't banned, so
it was available. I don't know why I didn't take it myself when I could have. But Xerneas on that team, and you look at the Xerneas, it's obviously it doesn't have the headshot there. It's the full Pokemon, but you have Dragapult, you have Cinderace, which can be a ton of different types, and Landorus there. That top 4 right there, and then obviously Mamoswine recently picked up, very good addition. Like, that's a very top 5 scary team. So I mean, like, that thing can do a lot. I mean, Nashville has the same thing. They have their franchise of Primarina. They have Landorus. They have the Comfeet with Zygarde that you see here, and that duo's nuts. So this division has the pieces to really make a climb. Really good late season surge. It's going to take a lot to win this division, even though I'm off to a hot start. It's going to take a lot to keep these guys off.
Yeah, so
Honestly.
let's go talk to the coach of the comfy Zygarde team. That
Yeah.
definitely is a
Yeah.
comfy Zygarde team, right, Ali?
Yeah.
Definitely a comfy Zygarde team. I'd say at least 50% of the season is a comfy Zygarde team.
So the
But,
joke here being that that is no longer a Zygarde team.
No,
But
it is
I'll let
Gathering
Ali
Ice.
give us his walkthrough of the division.
I mean, since we're talking about my team, you can see how it like plays into my play style that we've seen like this season and a lot more last season, where it's not the most damage, but it's very bulky and you have to play the long game to try and get rid of it. And you don't want to take me to game 3.
No.
Very fair.
Game 3
You do
game.
not.
But how is the division overall shaped up? Was it kind of as expected? Did you expect, Wingles, Charlotte, Ninetales, QCQ, or has that been different, or just not even sure going in how things would shape out?
I mean, we're used to seeing the Wingles on top. It happens. It's that regular season Wingles.
Yep. We suck in the playoffs, but hey, regular season's ours, man.
Got titles for it.
I mean, seeing Charlotte top 2 division, top 4 in the league, it's impressive, and I'm very happy to see it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid draft. It's spooky, and you took a lot out of me in that series we played,
Yeah, that was a close one. It was a tough one for sure.
for sure. Then we've got Queen City, whose divisional record not the best, but I mean, they've still got a pretty solid team, and I know we keep bouncing back to what's going on with it, and my answer to it as resident Cali Shadow expert. I mean, if you've brought something to answer the Cali, you answer a lot more of the Pokemon on that team. So it's a lot of common weaknesses, but I think, especially if they watch this video, they'll see what's going on, and I think they can bring back their divisional standings in the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, they've got a lot of good pieces. It's that first draft jitters. It's the having not played in the league, not really knowing what all types of pieces you really need. And for having first draft jitters, this is super solid. I don't think anybody's first draft has looked quite this good except maybe John from the Chapel Hill Haluchas. His was
He only
kind of
won his
spooky.
first season.
Yeah, it's he did have to make roster moves as well though, but
Yeah.
True.
which, speaking of which, to sort of transition us to the other side, there's only one team in the league that has not yet made a roster move as of not only week 5, but the recording of this video, and that is Jersey City, who is currently 4th in their division, but they just picked up a win
Yeah,
right about the
upset.
same time they did last season before going on their torrential tear, so who knows. But
Yeah.
with that little segue taking us over to the Johto side, as resident Johto player being outgunned here, I'll start us off on this. I did not see the division shaping up this way. For me, I thought this was a for sure almost Memphis first, Chapel second, Toronto third, JCJ 4 from the onset. I think we've seen some really surprising play out of everybody in the league, but I think the Johto side of things has been way more volatile with people overplaying and underplaying. Even just between 2 games in a single series, we've seen a lot of variance on the Johto side. And I think that's what's currently keeping the division tight and letting the motherfucker with a restricted of Mewtwo sit on top for a little bit here. It's
I
not
don't know how, but you've done it.
it's not great, but we're doing something. But But what about you guys? Is it shaping up on the Johto side of things as expected, or
Well, this division did the same thing last season. It was very close all season long with Chapel Hill, Memphis. I believe Toronto was there. The only thing different is Jersey City was on Galar's side, and we had a different team over there that's not playing this season. But it's three really good teams here. You can't count Jersey out because they get hot in the second half, and they've already picked up the first win. They just got to string together 5 more, and they'll finish 6-4, be middle of the pack again. But Toronto is at 8, Chapel Hill at 6, Memphis at 5, and really, it really just comes down to who shows up to play more often than not. Because like everybody can counter each other's teams, it feels like in this division extremely well, or at least has game plans. It's just who shows up, and then who stays consistent within the series. That's been the biggest difference I think between these two divisions. Is one of them, it's either really good adjustments on both sides, or somebody came up with this really good tech that the other team wasn't expecting. It swings the entire series, or it's just they're not sure what each other is supposed to be doing. And at this midpoint, it's kind of hard to tell. I think in the next couple of weeks, we'll kind of see how this division is going to shape out. Personally, I think Chapel Hill can make a run, but Toronto is going to be really good because the coach, Chris, you know what you're doing. You've played Draft League for all 8 of our seasons. You know what's going on. You've reformed the team extremely well in free agency. So I'm not going to count you out. And then there's the Zacian team, which we all know Zacian and Calyrex are 2 of the best restricteds here. And Zacian has the team to do it. And then Thunderous, they're potentially deterring any intimidates is also something you kind of have to watch out for as well. So this division has a lot to be determined. But I think in the next couple of weeks, we'll really kind of see who's going to finish on top and what 2 teams it's really going to come down to. I think it's a 3-team race, but by the time we get to week 9, it'll be a 2-team race.
Ali, what about you?
I mean, again, same sort of logic as our side. It's no surprise seeing Toronto on top. You do have the most experience out of any of the teams on the Johto side here. But, I mean, we saw last season our newcomer then, Chapel Hill, they took the title with them. But, so experience isn't everything, but it is a major factor, which I think is kind of what we're seeing here. But, I mean, very scary looking drafts here. That Zacian especially, you see Zacian and a bunch of stuff that's like, I don't want to have to try and answer both at the same time. And then you see the whole Groudon team, which also just scary looking at it. And you've got to have solid game plans. And I mean, you can't count out Jersey City either, considering I'm the first person to lose to him this season. But I mean, he does like to come up with his mid-season 05 power spike or whatever it is.
Yep.
1-4 on the season, but they'll turn it around. It's always inevitable, it seems like.
Yep. You
So
never
full
have
of
a free win.
surprises.
Yeah. Jacob, what about you?
I mean, it's pretty much like everyone else said. You know, Chris, you do have that overall experience being one of the original 4 to start out the league, and you know, you and Alex being the most experienced on that side. It's just the drafts overall for throwing the restricteds back in just makes everything seem so much scarier. I mean, Zacian being arguably the best restricted in the game alone is enough to make most people think that, you know, Memphis could very easily just rocket back up to the top of the standings for the Johto side. I mean, it's still a pretty even race, I think, for almost everyone in this whole, like, across both divisions. I think it is very doable for anyone to just come back up and really prove their mettle.
I mean, they're all within 1 game of each other. But like the other thing about this division is most of our roster moves in this entire season has been in this Johto division. Like Chapel Hill's been making a ton of moves. Toronto's been the most active team in free agency.
8 roster moves at this point.
8 roster moves, and it's added up since then. And you know, and I think the constant changing of the pieces on these teams makes it to where it's kind of I wouldn't say it's hard to figure out what you're doing. You're picking them up for a reason, but like implementing them and seeing how it works makes a big difference. But with all the changes, these teams are changing drastically. So like when we go to interconference or cross divisional stuff, when I play Chapel Hill next time, they're gonna have basically half a new roster from when I played them in week one.
Yeah.
Toronto's going to be way different by the time I see them in like week 8 or week 9. So I mean, this whole division has been full of changes, and I think that's what's made it very fun to watch, and also just been a lot of fun to see in the league because these have been big moves. We've had some big trades. We've had some big acquisitions. It's just been a very splashy off-season free agency time between games, which has been very fun for the league as a spectator on the other side of this bracket. I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While we are winding down on time, I do want to discuss one more thing before we move on to wrapping this whole thing up, and that is the restricteds. The big part of this whole thing, we've been hinting at it this whole time, but we've got to kind of talk about their performance. You know, going into things, we were like, there's some obvious big performers, right? Like Zygarde, do we ban it? Is Zygarde bannable?
Yeah, that was a long conversation.
Yeah. Zacian, pretty much not arguably the number one. Calyrex, the number 2. You know, Xerneas and Kyogre right behind it as the biggest issues. And outside of Kyogre has not been the case. Kyogre at an 88% win rate is the highest winning restricted, followed by Mewtwo at a 66% win rate, I believe. Yeah. And then that's followed by Groudon at a 62%. And then following that, we've got, you know, the Xerneas at a 55, just batting right above 500. We've got the Calyrex at a 50% win rate. Zacian is under 50% game wins.
Which is nuts.
Yeah, and Rayquaza has a 0% win rate on the season. It has not won a game that it has played in. So, how things have played out, how do we feel about the restricteds now? Just running through all the restricteds. What have we learned? What do we think teams are getting better with? How do you feel about these restricteds in the hands that they're in?
I don't think the power curve on restricteds, it's very important, don't get me wrong, but like Mewtwo has insane coverage. I think that's part of the reason why it's been so successful. Kyogre's kind of had some success, but I think that's just been more the team being able to play around it. I mean, Bronzong's what has the most KOs on that team, which is crazy to talk about.
In the league?
In the league, yeah. Y'all can touch on that more. But, I mean, just like the big players, I think it's because people know how to play against Groudon. People have a game plan when they see Xerneas. Calyrex Shadows, like, hey, where's your dark coverage at? And then like Zacian, where's your Intimidate? Do you have a way to burn it? Do you have a way to whittle it down? Like, I think the big answers, the big restricteds people have played against before, and so because of that, they kind of know how to approach it, even in a draft league setting. Whereas like Pokemon like Mewtwo has had the success because how often do you see Mewtwo? You might have saw it when Megas were a thing, but shoot, I wasn't playing like competitive Pokemon then, so like I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think a lot of us know exactly what it can do. And then Rayquaza's unfortunately taken a beating, but I think its ability can come into play against 2 of these teams pretty easily. So that's my thoughts.
Very true,
Yeah,
Jakob.
I mean, yeah, just to piggyback a little bit off the points that Caleb was making there, a lot of I think the reason that the restricteds aren't having as much of an impact in terms of win percentage, aside from, of course, the Kyogre, is most everyone is just paying massive respect to the restricteds because, you know, the restricteds, the legends, and the tier 1s are where a majority of our damage comes from in the league, for most of the teams at least. So if you're not preparing for the restricted or the legend tiers, you're kind of just throwing games away, it seems.
Very true, very true. Ali, what have been your biggest surprise success restricted and your biggest surprise less successful restricted?
Well, I mean, we see that Mewtwo up there, which not one of the ones people think of when they're trying to build a team with a restricted. And they're like, I'm gonna go with Mewtwo for this. But I mean, you're seeing solid success on the Mewtwo, which I guess is my biggest surprise there. And I guess the biggest surprise for, I guess, underperformance, again, is either that Zacian or that Cali Shadow, which you see at the top of the ladder all the time, but them sitting at 50% or below with not the best KDs. I mean, it's weird to see, but again, my argument since like day one about restricteds, or not argument, I guess like viewpoint, is they're easier to manage in a draft league setting other than ladder play, just because you can pick specific things for those where you're not facing hundreds of other Pokemon. You're looking at 13 here,
Very true.
which I think contributes to the success or not success of these Pokemon.
Very true, very true. But with that, I do believe we've hit the time constraints that we had set for this video. So it is time for us to bid you guys at home watching this bye-bye. Gentlemen, any closing thoughts before we see everybody in the next couple videos?
Just happy to be doing this again, man. It's fun talking about draft league stuff. It's fun sharing this out there with anybody who does watch this, because we enjoy it. I hope other people like doing this. It's a fun way to play Pokemon, honestly. My favorite way to play it, too.
I'm really happy to be here for my first video. This has been a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
fun.
true.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah,
We
thank
did.
you.
I snuck that in on us, man.
Right at the end too.
Yep.
I mean, everyone's in for a treat with how different everything looks in the lot since like these moves, these current rosters. Everything's so different. The season, who knows what it's gonna look like.
It's been blown wide open.
Yeah. So many moves. But with that, we'll get more into that in the next couple of videos. Thanks guys for hanging out. Again, today's cast has been done by, the four goofballs up here. Special shouts out to myself and Jakob for getting these graphics thrown together. Thanks for jumping in and helping me out with that. And before we take off this time, we'd like to give a special shout out to a handful of other people. Let's get a round of applause for Alex Ramy Lamb, the coach of the Jersey City Jirachis, Parker Daddy Wah of the Memphis Machamps, John Morpheus Moore doing a whole bunch of extra work in the background and coaching the Chapel Hill Haluchas, and our newcomer Hampton Ham Park. Thank you guys for being with us, and the new league mantra for this season, I guess.
Good lunch.
Have fruit.
And don't forget
to dap your refs. We'll see y'all in the next couple videos. Y'all have a good night, good day, whatever it may be. Peace.